You have thousands of employees. You guys have maintained that and scaled it to multiple states, multiple regions, multiple, operating entities, but thousands of employees. So the flywheel, for you, it's a pretty big wheel. Question of the day today is, what does it take to build a business that lasts for generations, that transforms lives and stays true to its purpose while doing that? Today on the Kingdom Makers podcast, we are blessed to be joined by Paul Ozinga. Paul is a fourth generation leader of Ozinga, a company that has been making an impact in the United States since 1928. Started with little more than a wheelbarrow and a dream, Ozinga has grown into a leader in the construction materials industry, offering concrete, bulk materials, and energy solutions across the Midwest and beyond. But what makes their story remarkable isn't just the company's success, it's the unwavering values that are behind it. Paul exemplifies what it means to be a kingdom maker. His faith, integrity, and commitment to stewardship has helped carry forward Ozinga's mission of building a better world. He's navigated the challenges of running a multi-generational business, fostering collaborative efforts across his family, while always driving innovation and sustainability in a competitive and resource-intensive industry. Paul's leadership goes beyond profit. He leads with a purpose. He ensures that Ozinga continues to serve as a force of good in the communities that they touch. Today, he's here to share his journey with us. His insights on legacy and leadership, on relationships, on making an impact, and doing it all with faith as a core value, will be a conversation that we feel will inspire and challenge all of you to think differently about how you lead and how you build your organizations. Paul, we're thrilled to have you join us here today. Thank you and welcome to our show.
Yeah, thanks for that magnanimous intro. I always like to just come from a humble perspective, sort of for the record, being a fourth generation business. I'm part of the sum of many parts. I have 5 brothers and a cousin that make up the ownership and leadership of the organization. So it's not solely me. Obviously, it's generations before myself and my brothers and my cousin. But I always like just to make that point. I'm part of a greater thing that I don't pretend to take credit for myself, but I'm happy to talk about all of it. So.
And you should be. It's an amazing family and it's an amazing effort. And as you mentioned, it's been going for a while. And I know how important it is for you to make sure it continues for even longer. Paul leads up the ready mix and aggregate portion of Ozinga. Ozinga is a large organization, but that is the biggest source, of the company, or the biggest portion of it. And it has a bunch of responsibility, but he has some amazing family that helps him. That's for sure.
Yeah, I like to say, we refer to it as our core business, with the makeup of ready mix, aggregates, and cement, coupled with, logistics. In a lot of ways, we consider ourselves a logistics company as well. But a lot of different businesses have spawned out of that. There's a lot of other ventures and different things that complement the business, but and we can get into more of that as we go.
Yeah, Paul, thanks. Really appreciate you joining the show. I love, part of your mission talks about building a better world. And so, what better ways to do it, than with ready mix and all the things that you're talking about doing. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it's it's always hard not to make a pun, right? Being in the concrete business, that we're at the foundation of everything. Just a fun fact that concrete is the second most consumed product after water.
Wow.
I don't think people think about concrete on a daily basis until they need it or there's an issue with it. which I get a lot of calls about issues with it, but those usually aren't our fault. But nevertheless, if there's anything that you take away from this podcast, it should be knowing the difference between cement and concrete. I've talked to a lot of highly educated people over my life, and they don't know the difference, and they often refer to concrete as cement. So just to set the record straight, cement is the main ingredient in concrete. Concrete's made of sandstone, cement, and water, and cement is a powder that when water hits it creates a chemical reaction called hydration, and that begins the setting up of concrete. So just to make that clear here.
I probably won't mess that up more than 2 times today. In our, you probably won't have to correct me more than that.
Yeah.
But I can't promise
That's
anything.
good.
So Paul, I mean, that to me, that sounds like a civil engineer. Is that like, did you go to school for civil engineering? I mean, it seems like somebody with that kind of background would know all those kind of details.
No, I when I was born, they told me all these things.
You were baptized in that stuff,
right.
probably.
Ironically enough, I grew up working in the business, being around the business, around concrete, and all different aspects. And I really, really enjoyed it, so much so that I wound up going to college at Middle Tennessee State University and getting a degree in concrete industry management. So all the work that I did prior to going to college really made a connection to, what the background was of the work that I was doing. Whereas before it was, a summer job and just working. And then college really gave me the opportunity to make the connections between the materials and how they react and the business side of things, and really learned a lot out of that. But I do have a Bachelor of Science, but I am not an engineer.
Okay. Well, it makes sense. Growing up in the family business and doing concrete, cement being an aspect of that.
Right.
But yeah, that makes sense to be baptized in it. So, could you tell us a little bit more about the early days of Ozinga? I mean, it's 4th generation, so maybe a little bit of, I guess, a history.
Yeah. Interesting history. So, my great grandfather started the business in 1928. Before that, he was and my family on that side were immigrants from the Netherlands, and settled in on the south side of Chicago in Evergreen Park. And my great-grandfather started out, he was actually a motorcycle riding police officer for the Cook County Sheriff's Department, and it was at a time during the 1920s, which, if you hear a lot about history, it was during the Prohibition, being a police officer during the Great Depression, and all these things was not an easy task. And he had 5 children, and the life expectancy of a police officer wasn't high in that environment. And the story goes that he got in a shootout with some hoodlums and almost lost his life. He arrested them, and the next day they were out jail, and asked them how they got out, and they said they bribed the judge, and he decided that was the end of that career, at which point he got into the coal and coke delivery business for heating homes. That's how they heated homes back then, and had a truck and would deliver coal and coke into his neighborhood and the surrounding areas. And he really built a solid name and reputation of honesty and integrity, which was rooted in his Christian faith. and really sort of built up the business on that. At which point his sons came to age and began working in the business as well. His goal was to get out of the business and hand it over to his sons. Either if he made $1 million first, or if he turned 50, either way, he was getting out. And so his sons took over the business, and then World War II came about, and the three of the sons that were running the business went to fight in World War II, and he had to jump back in and keep it going. And when they came back, they started things where they left off and ran the business, and eventually coal and coke delivery sort of started becoming obsolete, but they had the equipment necessary, delivery vehicles and things like that. And so they started getting into the construction supply business. And it wasn't until about the 1950s that ready-mix concrete started coming in the picture, whereas previously concrete was made on site with all the raw materials, and people would do it by hand and produce it that way. And so they got into that business, seeing that some of these other businesses, were sort of going to the wayside, and then grew that business. And then their children, my father and two cousins, eventually took over that business and really grew the ready-mix side of the business substantially. And made a lot of changes and grew geographically. And then we started coming in the picture and grew up working in the business. Ironically, all of us are in the business now. I have five brothers, and a cousin, as I mentioned before. And at the age of 62 in 2012, my dad had said, you know what? It's time for me to get out of the way, and I'm going to let you guys take this over and run this, and we'll see what you do with it. And that's pretty rare that you hear that, sort of a patriarch that's very involved in the business and really loves it, sort of decides to get out of the way and hand over the reins. I guess it's a testament to his belief in us and our youth that we can accomplish more and do things. But it really was a very interesting thing. A lot of times you hear about family businesses and the patriarch is 90 years old and won't get out of the way. And when he dies, everybody's tired of it and sells it. And so we all sort of look at ourselves now and say, how can we pass along, the same opportunity for the next generation and the youth to get in a position where they feel like there's something there and the opportunity to lead when their time comes. So that's the history in a nutshell. A lot of things in between, but yeah.
It sounds like, very, very I guess it's really a little bit visionary for your father to be able to hand that off and recognize that, it's going to be best for the long-term plan for Ozinga and the family and the business to be able to let the next generation start taking over and taking ownership
for sure
of the business. So it sounds like, Travis, you might have a little bit of experience around some of that as well.
As far as the family-owned business component goes?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. That there is definitely the succession elements that are, that are present that can, provide interesting challenges. And then, you put your fingerprints on something. It's hard to just hand that over to somebody else. If it becomes a big part of your identity, especially, it's like, who am I outside of this? And what am I if I'm not solely being identified as my business, or is that my only legacy? And that can be a challenge for anyone navigating that.
Yeah. A lot. It's a good point you make. A lot of people's identities are wrapped up in the work that they do, and that's who they are, and that's what life is all about. And we encourage all our people to have a purpose outside of work. Work is a purpose, but it's not the specific thing that you're doing that needs to be sort of the purpose, more so that you're working to honor and glorify God, which throughout all the generations has been our family's mission as a family, is to honor and glorify God and serve our fellow man, the crown of his creation. And so we look at things through that lens, but yet just seeing what our father did and the generations did before, understanding that we're stewarding the business, and that the idea is to pass it on, to have it be better than when we got it, really creates a lot of freedom in saying, you know what, it's probably a good idea to build a life around God and family and work, and be thinking about sort of a macro level idea of who you are and what you want to do, rather than wrapping up your whole identity into a business that is sort of fleeting.
It sounds like it might have been it's how you were raised, to leave it better than you found
right.
it. And it sounds like when your father handed it over and asked you and your brothers to take over, it seems like you're a little bit prepared for that. How kind of what was it like growing up in the family business, and all these, it seems you're at a different point now, and so you've been living it. But when that first happened, was that an easy decision for you to join the family business, or was it even a decision for you?
Yeah, certainly. There was never pressure put on us to be in the family business. We were all raised, sort of do what you want to do what excites you. I really enjoyed working in the business, doing the things that I was doing, working with the people that I was working with, just the amount of things I was learning and experiencing. And it was just very exciting, the pace and the change, and every day is different. And then being a part of developing and growing things that'll be here long after we're gone. It was just all very exciting to me. And then the idea of working with my brothers and cousin, I just love them. And that was all just very exciting to me. And so when the time came, it's what I wanted to do. And again, I got an education in it. I don't know, I guess that qualifies me to do what I do, but yeah, like I said, I think that made it better. And being raised that way, I have 5 children now myself, and I don't sort of put any pressure on them. I try to have them think about what interests them and what excites them and what they want to do. But it would be a great joy to have them work in the business if that's what they wanted to do. And we're navigating a lot of that right now with the next generation, the 5th generation, and what that looks like for them, and a path to work in the family business. Can you be, there's so many different contexts of hats that you wear, being an owner, being an active employee, and being a family member, are all 3 different aspects that intersect. And what role do you play in each one? Because you can't sort of be an owner, but not active, and expect to make decisions about the business. And so there's just all kinds of challenges to navigate and sort out, because in the 4th generation, we're dealing with 7 males that are generally aligned on things, and going to the 5th generation with 32 kids, with a mix of obviously males and females and different thoughts and different families, and that's not including in-laws, coming in the picture. And so there's a lot to navigate there, but yeah.
So that is a lot to navigate, and will continue to be a lot to navigate. And, from a leadership standpoint, it becomes easier to navigate, not easy, but easier to navigate when you have a good mission. So correct me if I've got this incorrect, but Ozinga's mission is to make an impact on individuals, their families, and the community for generations. They do that better. You do that better than about any company I've come across. And so you've got this amazing beacon of faith that you mentioned, really, going back to the beginning, and how that can shine a light on all the decision making. And you kind of combine that with that effort to impact the individuals and the families. So help us get a little context on how that has become so prevalent, both the faith element as a lens, but then your mission as well, because those specifically in the Chicago area, have seen the Ozinga name, and they've seen the fruits of that focus and that mission. But walk us through a little bit, if you would. How did it become what it did? Was it intentional, or is it just naturally the way your family's wired? And then how have you woven it into the company and making decisions, through that lens to meet that mission?
Yeah. So like you said, the mission is to make a positive impact on individuals, families, and the community for generations. And, we've talked about legacy, and we've talked about, an eternal perspective. And also I mentioned our family's mission, to honor and glorify God. So it's really rooted in sort of biblical truth and foundation, in a way. I like to sort of refer to it as somewhat of a flywheel, right? And what's the center that grows out from what's in the center. And a lot of missions, a lot of companies' missions in the center is the net income or the profitability or some other metric. And then if you can achieve that, then the result is all kinds of things. Whereas we put this mission of making a positive impact in the center. And if that's the main focus at the end of the day, that's the goal. And from there, we look at our values of service, learning, and entrepreneurship. And if we sort of go out a step with those values and then focus on serving, learning, and an entrepreneurial spirit, you break out even further. Okay, how are we living into those values of serving? And with respect to service, it goes back to the, who are we serving? We're serving our coworkers, our customers, and the community, and how are we serving them? And then, you break out even more on that. And then with learning, how are we growing? How are we growing our people? How are we growing the community? And then entrepreneurship, how are we thinking about different ways of doing things? How are we reinventing ourselves? Are we allowing people the room to play, to think of different things, to speak up and do things different ways? And at the end of the day, with focusing on all these things, the net effect in terms of business goes back to the center, but you wind up with a safer environment, a better community, with better results, with all these things. And so that's really sort of the lens that we like to look at it through and focus on first, and then sort of break out into how we're accomplishing that mission through our values. And we put a lot of thought into that, but at the same time, it came natural to sort of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And with that framework, that becomes our culture and our identity and how we decide to operate every day and interact every day.
And tell us, because one thing that some of the listeners may not realize is you have thousands of employees. It's not. This is not like you've got the 6 brothers and then or 5 brothers and a cousin and then a dozen other employees. you guys have maintained that and scaled it to multiple states, multiple regions, multiple, kind of operating entities, but thousands of employees. So the flywheel, for you, it's a pretty big wheel. It's not, it's not just a little wheel. So how's that gone? Have you found that being as rooted and rock solid on that, as you guys are, has made it easier to scale to that size and keep that as a core focus, or is it harder because you got so many more people involved?
Yeah. The key thing you're saying in all of it is people and people that align with that. I mean, I think I heard the other day that we had something like 20,000 plus applicants for a job at Ozinga this year. We don't have that many employees, and we don't have a need to hire that many people. But the people that work within the company are aligned with our mission, vision, and values. And certainly, everybody has different thoughts and ideas about things. But a lot of times you find that, with the organization that values service, learning, and entrepreneurship, every now and then you'll have an individual that knows everything and is right about everything and is God's gift to the company. They're not around for very long because it just doesn't add up how, we can sort of be this team and figure things out. There's not a lot of backstabbing and trying to get ahead. And, we sort of collectively work together to accomplish a goal. And there isn't all kinds of incentive for individuals alone to, sort of get a big bonus at the end of the year. It's a collective effort. But yeah, as you get further out, away sort of from the core, when there's not as much interaction, say directly with an owner that is rooted in what our mission is, it's critically important to have all of this in writing, in training, in understanding, regularly built into meetings. A lot of our meetings, we open with prayer. We go around the room, start out with prayer requests, and we share safety stories and purpose stories. It's sort of the context of our meetings. That's how they start. And everybody goes around and shares a story of how we lived out our purpose. We open with prayer. You say, well, how do you guarantee people in other meetings are opening with prayer? And I say, well, I don't. But I'm always surprised when I go to meetings or I hear meetings and people just do it. So as you get further out, it's critically important that we're hiring the right people that align with our values and that there's accountability there. And, I always say to a lot of people, if there's ways that people are talking to people, kissing up and kicking down and different things, it's like, well, do I talk to you that way? What would make you think that you could talk to somebody that way if we don't communicate that way? And so there's a lot of accountability in that regard. And people are clear about who we are and what the expectations are, and honesty and integrity and, upholding who we are is very important. And in a lot of ways, it's our name on the door, and it's our reputation as a company, as the people that we are, that gets us to where we are. And so it's very important to continue to reinforce that all the time, and not give up on that identity.
You talk about people, right? We were talking about the people chunk of it a lot. I saw something this week that I think as of this month, 75% of the workforce in the U.S. is comprised of millennials and Gen Zs. So there's a shift, right? There's a shift happening, not just the ownership shift that we generationally are dealing with in family-owned businesses, but there's the people, part of it. How are you guys at Ozinga, getting 20,000 people that want to come and join your team? Would be part A of that question. Part B would be, tell us a little bit more about some of the things you're doing with people that are currently on the team, considering that the generational dynamics are switching around on us.
Yeah, I personally love the next generations and welcome them. They come with a different set of ideas, a different set of thoughts. And I love what they bring to the table. And I kind of feel like the faster we can bring them up and get them educated and mentor them, the faster they can sort of take over, and just like the previous generations did. But it certainly comes with challenges because they view technology, they view life, they view working in the office or out of the office differently, and a lot of times you just you sort of try to understand what they're motivated by. And a lot of times you find that they've figured something out that maybe you haven't. This idea that you have to sit in an office and you have to start at 8 and you have to leave at 5 and may not be as productive as we all thought. And in fact, listening to them share how they'd like the day to go, or working different hours and utilizing technology in different ways actually produces more efficiencies and different things. So, but yeah, they bring a lot to the table, but there's also a challenge, and we have a strong work ethic here, and we work hard, but we have fun as well. And I think the values play into, being entrepreneurial, being able to think outside the box, allowing people to fail, learning from failures, getting an education from that, are all important aspects, I think, that make it attractive to a lot of people. We really value people as individuals, and the contribution that they make, and then elevate them when it's apparent that they're interested in that. But we also encourage dialogue. You're responsible for your own development, and so a lot of people say, how come I haven't been promoted, and how come I haven't advanced in here and there, and I say, because you haven't told me, and it's critically important that we create a culture of dialogue about where you want to be, what you expect, and ideas that you have, and solutions that you have, and at the same time, a lot of the next generation is taught to be in as many different careers and companies as possible.
Sure.
And so you find you have a younger generation that every 3 years is on to, if a promotion isn't taking place, they're moving on to the next company. And how do you deal with that? And on the one hand, as a company, we go, what are we doing wrong that, a certain generation isn't sticking around? And then you find out, no, that's just the way they are, or how they're taught. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. I mean, if you could be well-rounded, what we find, I sort of look at people that that leave or move on as alumni, so to say, and if their experience was such that they learned and they grew from their time at Ozinga, I count that as a win. And I found that over the years, a lot of that comes back. A lot of the folks that throughout their early careers that have left, I found a lot have come back. And I say it's good for you to experience what works and what doesn't, and what companies bring you joy, and is it the amount of money you're making, or is it the purpose that you feel in life that brings you joy? And young people need to figure that out while they're young, because the older you get, the harder it gets to make some of those changes. So
yeah, you got too many responsibilities, right? Too much adulting happening.
You're tied down.
It's hard to do.
You could often,
right. You get 5 kids like you got, you got a lot of responsibility there. You got to get covered.
Yeah.
Yep. Paul, like, so you've talked about like keeping your vision and truly your core mission about, always glorifying and honoring God in all that you're doing. And so you have your company's vision and keeping it. And when you talked about keeping it in front of everybody through, every day-to-day interaction, and everything that you do in your meetings and your communications, and at the same time offering these entrepreneurial career development paths for everyone at your company. How do you balance the two of those things? I mean, because for us, like that's what I see for us. At our company at Metal Fab, we've created that career development program, and we work towards our vision. We called it the greater good, that hopefully everyone stays aligned to. But not everybody, is always necessarily aligned to that, or they don't want to join in and take part in a development program that's tailored to them. So how do you balance those two? I mean, for us, that sometimes trying to bring everybody along and to get everyone to actually believe in that purpose and to believe in that greater good. What's your method? I mean, and obviously for you, it's, you've got a large organization. So how do you get it down to that individual concrete worker that's driving the truck to believe and want to, take part in the, the Ozinga's development programs and the opportunities that are presented there, and at the same time believe in that purpose of building a better world and glorifying and honoring God?
Yeah, I always say that, we can't have everybody wanting to be promoted. In terms of developing career-wise and growing into new positions and stuff like that, it's actually a much smaller percentage of individuals that actually are content with what they're doing and really want to grow more so personally and develop character and integrity and different things in what they're doing. I've come across employees who said, you're very good at this and that, and I'd like you to take on more responsibility to do this and that. And they say, no, I like what I'm doing, and that can go both ways. I say, well, you don't know what you don't know, and I'm going to have you do it, and you're gonna grow that way. And sometimes it fails, but sometimes they learn a lot about themselves. But it's really, we have a great communications department, a great marketing department, and there are a lot of internal communications that go out. Within the organization, we have corporate chaplains that are embedded in each division. A lot of times, managers aren't qualified to navigate difficult conversations, including myself, when you're running a business and people aren't comfortable with sharing certain things with individuals or their coworkers either. And so it's providing that opportunity, just to share those things, but also having a dialogue and having touch points about sharing, we have the company's purpose, but there's a lot of encouragement around an individual's purpose and why they're doing what they're doing. And then also sharing the impact that the organization has made and how they're an integral part of that and what they do every day. Connecting the dots to say, it's not just driving a truck. It's not just doing accounting. It's part of a greater good and a purpose. And each individual job is a collective sum of a greater outcome. And here's what the outcomes have been. Here's the result of the impact that we've all made and how we're giving back and how we're being involved in the community. And then people want to be part of a team that has forward progress. Where are we going? What are we doing? And we regularly have different offsites and host different events for everybody to participate in. And it's really just cascading that message as much as possible, how everybody's contribution is paying off.
Sounds a little bit like you're the chief communicator.
Well, yeah, we all have a job to do, and it's when you talk about people wanting to develop and grow. A lot of people say, I'd like to have your job, based on a lifestyle or money or different things, and I'm happy to do that. I'll gladly give anybody the keys, and even what
I'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah, you got
it. Swear me in. I'll be an honorary Ozinga tomorrow morning.
Right. But a lot of times, like you said, it's not. It comes with great responsibility to lead, so to say, and leadership. The outcome should be an impact, and not a result for a personal gain. And so, managing people and communicating to people, as you grow within an organization is the most rewarding part, but one of the most difficult parts. And communicating effectively and convincing everybody that what you're doing is right and making a positive impact. And so, yeah, that's a big role that ultimately is difficult and
heavy as the crown.
Yeah,
of leadership. You guys, mission statements and visions are great, right? And those are important. Give us some specifics, because what I know about Ozinga is that your mission is not just on the wall. It's not just a plaque. You guys do some really, really cool things. You have historically. Walk us through a couple of your favorites. What are some of the, I know when you and I talked the other day, I love the fact that you can drive through a neighborhood in Chicago and go by Ozinga Little League field. Like that's rubber meeting the road. That's not just saying we do things for our community. That's like real concrete examples. See how I did that?
Yeah, I like that.
Concrete example.
That's good.
Not a cement example. That's a concrete example of living your mission. But tell us a couple of the things that are some of your favorites that you've done, or that you want to do. Maybe it's stuff that one of those entrepreneurial or individual thinking team members wants to make an impact that isn't one of the Ozinga family's ideas. It's somebody else's.
Yeah, there's there are a lot of things that I've been blown away with over the years, whether it's feedback of an impact that you didn't even know you made, in a lot of ways. We commit to giving back 10% of our after-tax profit back to various different charitable organizations and churches and schools and other philanthropic things. And so you get a lot of times a lot of requests from employees and from the community, and how are we vetting that, and how are we giving back? And then there's also opportunities for all of us to serve, whether it's on various charitable boards or encouraging employees to serve at different things, and then being engaged in the community as well. It was last week we hosted a Merry Mixer event. So we decorated a concrete truck with all kinds of lights and music playing to it and stuff like that.
It's on the top of the front of the website.
Yeah,
Go to ozinga.com and see it. It's really cool.
Kudos to the communications team. But we hosted and we sort of do it every year. We hosted a Christmas party, so to say, that was open to the community, and it's at our office, and there's a sort of live reindeer and a Santa Claus and all different kinds of things. And you sort of wonder, like, who's going to come to this, and why does anybody, would they be interested in coming to a corporate office and participating in this and that? And when the event happened, I was just totally blown away by the amount of the community that came, the lines that were out the door, and people genuinely excited and happy to be there and participate in all the activities. And I didn't even realize myself, like, you have all these people that are coming to this space that are sort of being filled with joy, and at the same time we're able to share a message about what this looks like, and there's so many stories like that of just exciting things that you're able to give back to the community, and we're a part of it, and it's really important that we have an impact with the resources that we have and the opportunities that we've been given, that we're able to give back and live into our purpose of serving. And there are a lot of stories that I believe have had an impact, and then a lot of individuals that have had an impact on us.
Yeah, I can think of some times where, you don't realize the impact that you are having as a leader. It's just, you put something into motion. You think it's good for the company and the business. It's working towards your purpose and your vision. And you think it's something good for an individual, and you put it out there, and then they kind of like, let's do it. And then on the other side of it, you kind of see the results of it, to where you see the smiling faces, to where someone's excited, to where, I could think of, in my head, I'm thinking of an individual. It's like he completed some training, and, it was like the entry level training, and he completed it. And then I was like, oh, that's a great job. And he did some extra work, and he was like excited. He was just like, he just lit up. I was like, hey, good job. That was a big deal. You went ahead and you did more than you had to. And he was like, yeah, it was. And he was just totally excited. And so as a leader, you don't realize the impact that you have. And that's what I'm hearing from you. It's like when you can have that larger impact on your community as you're having. And it's just like, it seems like that resonates with you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. There's so many instances of that, doing the right thing. There's all kinds of ways sort of to get ahead, and there's a right way and a wrong way. And, we pass up on a lot of different things because it's the wrong way. And it doesn't seem right, and it doesn't fit in the lens of who we are and what we believe and what God's called us to. And we take a pass on a lot of things, and at the end of the day, you're respected for it. Believe it or not, that you stand your ground on different things, and people know where you stand. And that, when you have conviction about something and you share it, that ironically provides more respect than somebody or an organization that doesn't, that moves with what popular culture says and wants you to say, and you just decide that's not who we are and that's not what we're going to say, and it's confusing to a lot of people. Like, well, aren't you going to get on board? And it's like, no, not with this one, and so it's interesting.
It sounds like you're just, no matter what, you're always going to do your best to walk worthy of what you've been called to do.
Right. That's right.
So we're not quite there yet, but we're coming up on 100 years for Ozinga. Yeah. So building a business, maintaining a business, growing a business that lasts 100 years is that's not an easy task, and it inevitably probably comes with some failures. You got any fun stories of, hey, we failed miserably at this, but we learned.
Fun failures?
We're not going to do that again. I'm sure it's there's never failure, but do you have any of those you want to share with us?
The failing forward stories.
Yeah. Failing forward.
Yeah, I'd say there's way more failures than successes. Believe it or not, a lot of people say, oh, you're so lucky. I heard somebody say to somebody else, oh, you're so lucky, you've made all this money and all this stuff. And they said, that's funny. The harder I work, the luckier I get. But personally, professionally, life is extremely difficult, right? And it's a perspective of how you look at it. And we try a lot of different things. That's one of the upsides, downsides of being entrepreneurial. And you have to decide if you're going to fear failure or if you're going to embrace it, and what you're going to get out of it and what you learn from it. So in business and in life, the willingness to try a lot of different things, knowing that they may not work out, is risk, right? And that's part of our culture as well, as just the freedom to take a risk if you have an idea and work on something. But then there's all kinds of external factors that we don't have any control over, that result in difficult situations: the weather, the economy, the government, all kinds of pressures that are there that you can't control, that set you back on decisions that you made that you thought were positive. Do we spend money going into this economy? Do you grow or try something new? And the answer is always yes. And there's a disciplined approach to it, certainly. But there have been failures where you wonder, how are you going to get out of it? How are we going to get out of this? How are we going to navigate this? The recession in 2007, we felt it in 2010 at its worst, and the company was reduced by 50%. How do you sort of navigate that? And what did we learn from that? And we learned a lot about a lot of different things. And, even throughout history, looking back at the generations before us, them passing on stories of failures and what they've learned and different things. So I don't know if you want some in-depth sort of examples.
Well, you give us one as in your leadership journey, right? And as you've progressed and as you've been a part of it now, and as you're, as an owner and a leader, you talked a little bit to that earlier. What's one that a nugget you could pass on to somebody else? Like, hey, this lump was a big one, and I had to take it. But do you have any specifics for something like that?
Let me think about that.
No problem. I'll give you a different one. So You guys say entrepreneur a lot. You say that word a lot. It's in a lot of the things that you do. As an entrepreneur, I almost equate the word to risk. And so you were talking risk a minute ago there. Which generation of the Ozinga ownership group was the biggest risk takers? Is it current guys, or is it previous, or is it the ones coming up?
It's definitely in our DNA. I mean, you think about it, you think about change and, going back to the beginning with being a coal and coke delivery business and deciding to completely pivot into an entirely different business and away from, recognizing that something was becoming sort of obsolete and changing. You go back, you hear the stories of, Kodak and how they missed it, A lot of companies just missed it, the changing technology. And that generation made that change. And the next generation made a change from different types of equipment and to different spaces and trying new things. And, I grew up watching my dad change all kinds of things and come up with different ideas, and he wasn't afraid to try them and throw money at them, and a lot of them didn't work. And the same thing is going on in this generation. And then I hear a lot of ideas from the fifth generation and things they want to do and things they want to do different, and things they want to change. So yeah, it's certainly in the DNA. It's in our culture, and our industry more than ever is evolving fast. A lot of people are looking at the environment and, its finite resources, and how are we stewarding those with the resources that we have, and how are we best utilizing all that stuff. And so, it's really looking at are we being good stewards of the resources that we have, and how can we do it better and improve on sort of the ability to, like, cement production is a big carbon emitter, and how can we bring those emissions down, and how can we come up with different mix designs and ways of doing that, and what's the latest technology out there that can help us improve those ratios and different things. So we're willing to stick our necks out and try to find some solutions for those things. And I always say, can't we just be a fast second at some point, instead of trying to be the first to figure it out? And the answer is usually no. It's like we got to figure it out first. So
I've heard, actually, I think I got this example from Travis that being an entrepreneur is a little bit like knowing that you need to go run off a cliff, and so you're going to go run off the cliff and figure out how to land on the way down. And so I'm hearing that's a little bit about as this generational owner of Ozinga, you're not looking at risk the same way that an everyday person would, the way I would maybe, because you're looking at it as like that's just part of life, that you're gonna run, you're gonna make that leap, and you're gonna figure it out on the way. Is that a risk? You don't even see the risk there. Whereas I'm going to look and say, I'm going to think about that. How am I going to get down first? But you're not even viewing it like a risk. It's because your DNA is a little different.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there, right? That's in a lot of ways that's faith, and I think when you look at risk, it's what's the motivation behind the risk, and a lot of times, God opens doors and closes doors, and if you're taking a risk where the doors keep opening, you keep going through them. And if you're motivated by some sort of selfish ambition of taking a risk in the hopes of making a lot of money or becoming something you're not supposed to be, and the doors are closed and you keep trying to jam through them, you wind up in some funny places you didn't want to be, and the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. And that gets back to the learning side of things when you're growing in your faith. That when you're seriously considering taking a risk, being an entrepreneur, there's patience involved in all of it. That you say, okay, I'm gonna take this risk, but I also have to recognize when it's not something that's moving forward, or are there external forces that it should be moving forward and they're trying to stop me from doing it? And how hard do I fight on this and push on this? And there have been a lot of instances of that too, where, you're foolish to think that the devil doesn't prowl around this world and try to stop you and prevent you from doing something as well. And so you really have to test everything with what your foundational truths are to make those risks come forward. And I'm guilty of trying to do things for selfish ambition all the time, but I always get put in my place somewhere along the road.
Seems like a door gets closed.
Yeah.
You can't go through the door then.
Yeah. Or you get in trouble, or, all kinds of things.
Yeah. But, doors will open for those that are brave enough to knock sometimes too. And I think that, if you build a company with a culture where there's safety in taking risk, you're willing to knock on a lot more doors, mm-hmm. right? And obviously, you guys have built a focus on entrepreneurial spirit and communication and a number of the things we've talked about today into just the DNA of who your company is. And maybe that's come from, your grandpa and your dad, and now you and your brothers. But it's good to knock on doors, right? It's good to take things like sustainability and say, boy, do we really want to knock on that door and see what's on the other side? Companies that believe in that stuff, they do it. And then, you got Ozinga Energy, poof, just like that. Okay, we're going to embrace it. Right. We may not love every bit of it, but until we knock on the door and see what's there, we don't even know what's on the other side. So
yeah, there's
something to be said.
That's one of the challenges is when you have a big entrepreneurial spirit, when you have a fifth generation coming up, there's way more ideas than time and capital. And how do you prioritize all the things that everybody wants to do, with oftentimes limited capital, and how much do you borrow, and how much, leverage are you willing to take on? But one of the unique things about being a private family business is we can look at things from a long-term perspective that aren't going to pay off for 50 years, because we're not in a position to appease shareholders on a quarter by quarter basis, where we have to make decisions and we can't take too much risk because the results have to look a certain way. And so we have that unique advantage of having that perspective that, this may not pan out, but for the next generation or the following generation. But we know that it's the right thing to do now because the opportunity has presented itself, and it's so unique that we have to capitalize on it. And a lot of situations come up like that. And then I'd like to say that there's some sort of roadmap that we put, up on a whiteboard, and this is the direction that we're going, and that's the way it all goes. And in all honesty, God has blown us away in so many cases where pieces of puzzles have been put up sort of all over the place, and we didn't fully understand or recognize how things were connected. And years go by, and all these things start to connect, and it wasn't part of your plan at all. You just were being obedient and stewarding what you had, what was in front of you, and showing up every day and doing what you were required to do. And that's been the case. I mean, it's just, and all of a sudden you look back and it's like, how never would have imagined that would have complemented that. That doesn't, that doesn't make sense. Now it all makes sense. And you're so smart,
Yeah. You focus on the problems today and don't worry about tomorrow.
Right.
Tomorrow will take care of itself.
Right.
What excites you the most about the future for Ozinga, getting, not just ownership wise, generation 4 to 5, but, for all those team members that, that you're caring for their families and trying to provide them that impact or the opportunity to make an impact. What is from a legacy standpoint, what does it look like for you? What's the things that you're most excited about kind of continuing the Ozinga story?
We have a lot of unique things going on within the organization that are sort of generational game changers that I'm really excited to, we've been working on for a really long time that are sort of coming to fruition. I'm excited to continue to expand and grow. There are a lot of opportunities with that respect. I'm really excited about the younger generations. Coming aboard and the ideas that they have and just the speed at which technology is moving, and the opportunities around, I see a real pivot and change coming with the way we do things. Another one of these generational shifts where we're at a crossroads, to get on board with technology and the way it's changing and incorporating it into our organization that I think is going to catapult a lot of decisions and efficiencies and changes and the way we do things. So we're really paying close attention to how that's evolving. I think I'm pretty pumped about a lot of this AI activity that's going on and incorporating that into our space. I don't think we fully understand how it's going to impact us, but let the record state that it's going to be crazy.
Could you give us a glimpse? What do you like? Are you have something working, or is that something that's still, can you give us a glimpse into what that AI looks like for like Ready Mix?
Yeah. So you have a lot of different buckets that AI fits into, but whether it be communication, whether it be logistical efficiencies, whether it be diagnostics on things, I can't specifically say, but I could get into details on various different things, but I think it's a game changer at the speed of which you incorporate it into your organization, understanding it, playing with it, allowing people within the organization to play with it and think through it and share on how it's changing things is a critical element of competing. And I think there are going to be a lot of people that don't think through how it incorporates into their business. That are going to have a hard time down the road if they don't seriously consider it.
So it's like, whether it's AI or this technology, I mean, that's a door that you're knocking on, but the way you've created this culture at Ozinga with this entrepreneurship culture and giving people the ability to take those risks and to go knock on those doors, that's something that you're whether it's AI or some technology or something else, you have the culture and the company that's going to be able to go and pursue those, whatever those next chapters are.
Yeah. So you could, I think back to a story where so delivering concrete in a ready mix truck requires a lot of logistics. It's a perishable product. You have about 90 minutes to deliver the product to wherever it's supposed to go and unload it. And you only have so many trucks, and a lot of times you have more orders than the amount of trucks you have, and you have to figure out how to get a truck to a job and back loaded and go to another job and get back and loaded and figure out all those trucks and how they all need to do that throughout the day. It's like hiking a football and making audibles and
through Chicago traffic
with bicycles zooming all around in front of them. And in my dad's generation, it was all done manually with magnets and T cards and CB radios and all these different things. And he was one of the first ones to get a Motorola phone with antennas and radios and experiment with that on communicating with the drivers. And eventually he got some of the first age computers in the dispatch office to try to figure out how to dispatch with computers, and it was like, that's crazy. What would you need computers for? And now it's almost laughable. Like, what do you mean? How would you not, And
how many trucks are in the Ozinga fleet? Do you know?
Oh, so I don't know, somewhere around 1,000 or something like that, but just a thousand red and white trucks like cruising around. But yeah, that's a lot of magnets to have to keep up on the board. Then,
and
it wasn't as many back.
It
wasn't as many back then, right, in the early 80s, but 70s, whenever computers came into play. But I sort of view it as this is the same situation, in a lot of ways where. You say, well, that's silly. I'm not going to have a robot start telling me what to do, and it's going to take over our lives and all this different things. And it's a resource that's going to change the way we make decisions. And right now we have control of the resource and how it makes our decisions. So let's sort of figure it out. You used to go to the library and look through the Rolodex and, find the book that has the information in it. And that was exciting, right? To go to the library and figure that out. And eventually, you go to Google and you do the same thing you do at a library, and you research the information you want to look for. And that's exciting. And now, as of late, you go to an open AI platform and tell it what you want, and it comes back and tells you exactly what you want. So it's an evolution, and I'm excited about it.
You just don't have to take the pocket full of dimes that you used to have to take to the library to make photocopies and print out whatever that information you were seeking.
Right.
You don't have that anymore. These young kids won't even know what that was like to have $5 worth of dimes in your pocket.
Right.
You made a lot of copies, huh, Travis?
Well, I'm not very smart, so I had to bring it all home with me because I couldn't remember anything. Yeah. Good. Well, hey, Paul, it's been great. It's been terrific talking to you. I appreciate so much you sharing, just parts of the incredible story that is Ozinga. The family and the approach is it's special. It needs to be seen by more. So is the website the best way if people want to learn more about Ozinga? Is that, go to ozinga.com. Is there other ways that you would, point people to learning more about what you guys do? And if they want to mirror or learn from some of those efforts, is that the best way, or do you have another way?
I would say ozinga.com. Our YouTube channel has a lot of videos that we've made over the years about our purpose and our values and our history. That our communications team does a really good job of making videos and sharing a lot of these stories. That'd be the best avenue. But no, really, I'm humbled that I was even asked to come on and talk. I hope I did you justice. But it's always a humbling experience. I don't like to talk about myself or any accolades or accomplishments, more so that, it's a collective effort to honor and glorify God. And I'm, proud to share that by doing that, there's true blessing that takes place in that.
I heard that from you, Paul. So that was great hearing, your focus on your family mission and to honor and glorify God and to truly make an impact and make the world better and, through the family business. So I definitely heard that, and it came through very clear to me. So thanks for the time today, Paul. This has been great.
Yeah, it is clear. It's clear that Ozinga is more than just a company, and it's a legacy that's built on purpose and faith, and has a vision for making that impact, which is why we felt you were perfect to talk about kingdom making and stewardship. And so, thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you. So you guys,
you're absolutely welcome.
This is going to pass up new heights now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well. Especially with that terrific marketing crew from Ozinga, they can help us push this out. And all of you listening at home, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Hit us up. Make sure you subscribe on all the major podcast platforms. Give us 5 stars. Give Paul and the Ozinga family 5 stars for the great efforts that they make. And we'll catch you on the next episode, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.